Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. You're listening once again to the Hour of the Time. And tonight it's really going to be an hour of the time because we're going to straighten some things out here. We've got to do that. So tonight, since so many of you insist upon needing some kind of a daddy, I'm going to try to fulfill that role for you just a little bit. I don't really want to be your daddy. I don't want you to need a daddy. I don't need a daddy. But sometimes, folks, somebody has to clarify things. And last night's broadcast brought home to me that there is a real need to clarify a lot of things. And so I'm going to try to do that for you. I'm here for you tonight. I'm going to try to blow a path through the fog so that the headlights can shine down the road and you can see what's really there. I'm going to try to part the veil. I'm going to try to pull some cobwebs out from between some of your ears. Because, last night just absolutely infuriated me. And after I calmed down and thought about it for a while, there just seems to be this conception that that if you do this, or this, somehow everything magically is going to be all right, and you're not going to take any risk, and you're not going to suffer, and if you prepare and all this kind of stuff, you're going to survive whatever comes. And I just got one question for you: what the hell for? Ladies and gentlemen, when I was a boy, I was an extremely sensitive young man and very willful. I wanted to do something good. I've always wanted that. I've always had this need inside me, for some reason or other, I cannot explain why, to do something. To do something that really matters. I can remember the first time I ever got in a fist fight. I was scared to death. In fact, I was almost petrified to the point of cowardice, to tell you the truth. And the boy I had to fight was a bigger boy, about twice my age, as a matter of fact. And he was the base bully. We lived on a military base in the Azore Islands called Lodge's Field. Actually, we didn't live on Lodge's Field. We lived in a village called Fonte de Bastard, which was quite some distance from the base. And one day we went to the base, and my parents dropped us, the children, off to play with some of our friends while they went to do other things. Well, when they came back, they parked the car and watched us for a little while. And that's when this bully decided to pick on me. And I was afraid of him. All of the children were afraid of him. That's how he got to be a bully for so long. And he hit me in the face with his fist a couple of times. And I didn't do anything. I didn't hit him back because I was afraid. My father saw this and knew that if he didn't do something right then, that I might turn out to be a coward for the rest of my life. So he got out of the car, he came over, and he knelt down beside me, and he says, "Son, you've got to fight him." I said, "Why?" He said, "Because he hits you, son, and you can't let him get away with that, because if he knows he can get away with it, he will always pick on you and hit you and hurt you." And I told my father I was afraid. And he said, "That's good, son, because you'll watch out for yourself if you're afraid. Now you go over there and you hit him back as hard as you can with your fist. And if he hits you, you hit him back again, and you keep hitting him until he stops." And so I mustered up what little courage I had, and I was shaking like a leaf, 7 years old. Walked over to this big bully who was taller than me. I could not hit him in the face if I tried. And I hit him as hard as I could, just as hard as I could, ladies and gentlemen, in the chest with my fist, or as close to his chest as I could get. And he hit me back and knocked me down, and it hurt, and my ears were ringing. But I became numb. He hit me so hard it numbed me. And I got up and I started hitting him as hard as I could, crying. Tears just streaming down my face, and I was crying and hitting him and swinging, and I knocked him down. I actually knocked him down. I couldn't believe it. And I got up on top of him and I just started hitting him again, and he was hitting me back. And then my father came over and picked me up, gave me a big hug and said, "You did fine, son. Go get in the car." So I went and got in the car with my mom and my little brother and sister, who were all sitting there with their mouths open looking at me as if I had done something extraordinary. And my father had a couple of words with the local bully. I have no idea what my father told him, but he never bothered me again. And folks, to this day, I don't believe it was because I knocked him down. But I got to tell you, I felt good. I felt better than I had ever felt in my entire life. I felt like the king of the world. Not because I had hurt someone, but because I had done something right in the eyes of my father and my brother and sister and my mother and all the other little children who were there, whom this bully had always picked on like ever since we could remember. After that, he didn't pick on too many of the children. Not just me, but anybody. I remember it like it was yesterday. I've never forgotten. And then a little girl who lived on the base, next time we came to visit, and I think the next time we came to visit, it was because we had finally got some base housing, so we could move from the village of Ponta de Bastard onto the base. And that would be much better for my father, who had to make the long drive twice a day. This little girl, her name was Glenna Jean Stowe. I'll never forget her either. She came and told me that I had really done something good and wanted me to come and play with her. And folks, 7 years old, you're not thinking about dating and sex and all of that kind of thing. I was just extremely pleased, and she was a pretty nice little girl. And we got to be really good friends. When I left the Azores, I never saw her for quite a few years until my father was stationed in Japan, and I went to Naramasu High School, and there she was. She had grown up, and I didn't recognize her. Not at all. All I knew is this girl is beautiful, absolutely raving beauty. But she remembered me. And she remembered me because I had fought the bully, and the bully had stopped picking up on her and all the other children. She had never forgotten that either. Now, we never became romantically involved, but we were good friends for many, many years. I don't know what's happened to her now. I don't know where she is. That's what happens when you grow up in a military family, when you're reared on military bases and in foreign countries all around the world. You are left without a hometown. You see, that's one thing that most of you have that I can never have in my entire life: a hometown. All of the schools that I attended are gone now. They don't exist anymore. All of the children that I attended school with, all the way through my high school graduation, are scattered to the four corners of the earth, and I have only been able to locate a very few of them. Some from Narmasu High School, which was at Grand Heights Housing Center, near a little Japanese village called Narmasu on the express line several miles from Tokyo. And I attended Narmasu for my freshman and sophomore year. And then we moved to Tachikawa Air Force Base, outside of Tachikawa City. And I bused every day to Yamato High School. And that's where I graduated in 1961. All my life, ladies and gentlemen, I have envied those of you who have a hometown. I would love to have some place that I could go back to and walk down the street and say, Mrs. Jones used to live over there. She taught me in the 4th grade. And there's old Jimmy Barnes. Boy, we used to play football together. And out there used to be a big field there where those houses are, and we used to build forts and play cowboys and Indians. I can't do that. I envy those of you who can. It's been a big, empty spot in my heart, because everybody needs at some point in their life to go back and examine their roots, look at their beginnings, see their old friends and yes, even their old enemies and teachers and antagonists and protagonists, and the guys you played football with, the guys you played hooky with, and the guys you hung out with, and the girls you dated. Not to do it all over again, but just to know that it really happened, and to know that they're really there, so that you can have a feeling of belonging, so that you can be a part of your own past. I can't do that. I don't even have my old yearbooks. I don't know what happened to them over the years. They just disappeared, floated away. They're gone. Gone. I miss them terribly. And so to make up for that empty spot in my heart, I encompass this whole great nation as my home. I reached out and I wrapped my arms around this country, around the Constitution for the United States of America, around all of the principles and ideals for which it stands. I studied its beginnings, its history. I've researched its present, and that has become my home. Hometown, to be more exact. My home is here, with my family on top of this mountain in Arizona. But my hometown is the country, the nation. I had determined and set out to do all of the things that my father told me he represented and was doing and didn't. The World War II generation that let us down, that sucked up to the tit of big government after the war was over to get their piece of the big pie. Trying as hard as I can to make up for that. Now, along the way, I've become well-versed in the methods and the manners of the beast, which has subverted from within and taken over my hometown. Taken it over. Is destroying it. I don't like it. And I want to do something about it. You see, because I want my children to grow up in my hometown free, with opportunity, without fear, especially without fear of their government. I am not anti-government. I have never been anti-government. In my quest to fulfill this, my initial plan was to serve in each of the armed forces, all 4 of them, retire, and go into civil service. That was my plan. I served 4 years in the United States Air Force, 10 years, a little over 10 years, about 11 years in the United States Navy. My next stop was the United States Marines. After that, I planned to finish up in the United States Army. Somewhere along the line, I discovered what was really happening. Actually, it's not somewhere along the line. I can pinpoint the exact place, the exact day, the exact year, the exact hour. As a matter of fact, when I made a tremendous mistake. Some people call it a tremendous stroke of luck because I never would have known or found out what I discovered, and would still be serving what I thought was my country, as so many people are still doing. In their innocence, as I was innocent. I was sent from sea duty to shore duty to Fleet Admin Unit at Singpac Fleet, which is the Commander-in-Chief of the Pacific Fleet's headquarters in Makalapa, Hawaii. And they handed me this huge stack of papers and said, fill these out. You can't work here unless you have a top-secret Q clearance. I was a second-class petty officer at that time. And I filled everything out, and I came to this long list of organizations. And you were supposed to check every organization that you'd ever belonged to in your life. And one was missing. It was the Order of Demolay, which is the youth organization for Freemasonry. And so, knowing that it was the youth organization for Freemasonry, I checked Freemasonry, because Demolay was not listed. And wham, bang, crash, zippity-doo-dah. This automatically opened up an FBI record on me, because it's the FBI. See, most security clearances up through secret are agency checks, which means they just run a communications check of all the different agencies to see if they have any derogatory information. And if they don't, you can get as high as secret security clearance, or you could then, let me put it that way. But to get top secret, and especially AQ, SCI clearance, which is what I had to have. SCI means sensitive compartmentalized information. The FBI has to do a complete background check, and ladies and gentlemen, they do not do it by phone. They literally, personally visit every single person that you ever knew in your entire life and ask them questions, the answers to which you would not want your mother to know. So I was kind of sweating that because I didn't know what could prevent you from getting a security clearance. And I passed it all. I got some strange phone calls from people that I knew wanting to know what bank I had robbed, why the FBI had been at their house asking all those questions. And I got the security clearance. Later I found out that everybody who had my type of clearance, a top secret Q clearance with an SCI, were all members of the Mormon Church, the Order of Freemasonry, the Ancient Order of the Rose and Cross, or Rosae Cruci, and several other different secret societies, and most of them were members of several of those. Later I discovered that those who belonged to the Mormon Church never went much higher than that, and you never saw them in the highest ranks of the military. And so I asked somebody once, and he told me, well, don't discuss it with any of them, but you see, their church teaches them to be obedient and never reveal secrets. And so we use them. He was confiding in me because he thought that I understood what was going on. I didn't. I didn't understand of a lot of things that I was seeing. I didn't understand a lot of the things that happened, and I didn't understand the restrictions placed upon us when Americans were in peril, and we should have been going to rescue them, but were forbidden to do it. I didn't realize what was going on until years later when I began to put all the information that I had seen and heard together and realized that I had actually been a part of and had seen the plan to destroy the United States of America from within and bring about a one-world totalitarian socialist, one-world government over the ashes of the Constitution for the United States of America, and that it was the stated and avowed policy of the United States government to do that. When I realized that, I left the Navy. I took an honorable discharge as a petty officer first class, and I left the Navy. I never wanted to be a part of government service again because I knew what government service really meant. And I began a program of research and revelation and education to the American people, which I have not stopped since. Because somebody's trying to destroy my hometown. The only hometown that I have, the only one that I ever will have, the only one that can possibly mean anything to me because there isn't any other place for me to go. And ladies and gentlemen, if you've never seen anyone in your life who loves their children completely and totally with all their heart and soul, you come and visit me and you will see that person standing right here in front of you. So I cannot leave my children to the future that I know is coming without putting up a good fight to stop it. No matter what happens in the future, I want them to be able to say, my father did everything he possibly could as a human being to leave us a good future. I'd be very pleased if many of you and your children could say that about me also. I don't want statues or ribbons or medals or anything like that. I don't even want to fight another war. I fought a war in Vietnam. There are no heroes in war. There are people who do what they have to do at a particular time when it is necessary because there just isn't anybody else to do it, and that's all there is to it. When I fought in Vietnam, I was a patrol boat captain. First on the river and harbor at Da Nang, and then on the Qua Viet River near the DMZ. I saw an awful lot of combat. Me and my crew killed an awful lot of what we then called the enemy. And they killed a lot of us. And I worked with some damn good people. All of them boys. I was 25 and they looked up at me as some kind of an old veteran. An old salt. At 25 years old, I had a patrol boat with enough weapons that I could decide the life or death of anybody that we came across at any time that I wanted to, and could destroy whole areas of population. And if the weapons on my boat were not good enough, I could go to my radio and call in an airstrike or an artillery strike if I wanted to. And my crew were just young boys, 18, 19, 20 years old. My whole life became taking care of those boys. I never slept when I was on patrol. And I only allowed one man on my crew to take a cat nap if he actually really needed it, and I knew when they needed it. None of my men ever showed up for patrol high or intoxicated or drunk or even with anything on their breath. I didn't care, nor did I go looking to see what they did when we were not on patrol, because I knew that they could all be dead the next morning. And whatever they were doing, I didn't consider to be any of my business, except when they reported to the boat to once again go out on that river. And we only patrolled at night, ladies and gentlemen, and before we obtained starlight scopes, you have no conception of what fear and darkness really means. You can't even imagine it unless you've been there. And I know that some of you have. You are my brothers. I never ate until they had eaten, and I never went to bed until I knew that they had a warm bed to sleep in. When we came in off of patrol, if some of them wanted to go over to the enlisted men's club and have a few beers, I always went with them, and I always bought the first round, and then I left them alone. If I knew one of my men was broke, I gave him money, as much as I could spare. But I was so happy and so thankful that no man that ever served on that boat with me was ever wounded or killed. I thank God for that even today. That's a heavy responsibility to put upon the shoulders of a 25-year-old man. Young man, and if you want to know the truth, 25 is still a boy. Now that I look back on it, now that I'm 54 years old, I can tell you that when I was 25, I was just a boy too. Trying to do what I thought was right, and I'm trying to do what I think is right today. And this is where we have to come to some understanding, ladies and gentlemen, because I can't help you if you're deceiving yourself. If you're tuning into this broadcast because it gives you some kind of thrill, or it's entertainment, or you enjoy these programs even though I am telling you things that should make you very sad about what's happening in this country and should be stimulating you to some kind of action. I don't see much action going on. And I hear people playing children's games. To be a patriot, ladies and gentlemen, is not to be loyal to my country, right or wrong. Do you understand what I'm saying? To be a patriot is to be loyal to the principles and ideals and to the supreme law of the land which makes the country. And if there's someone in the government, in the country, who is doing wrong things in the name of the country, you cannot support it. You cannot support it. The nation is not geographical boundaries. It is an idea. This is something that I realized many years ago has nothing to do with geographical boundaries. It has nothing to do with the border between the United States and Mexico. It has to do with the way we think. It has to do with the principles and ideals which we support and believe in that made this the greatest, freest, most opportune nation upon the face of this earth. It is the reason why we were successful and the Mexicans were not. Why we were successful and the Canadians were not. It's the reason why out of all of the peoples of the world, this nation is the hardest to conquer and bring into a one-world government. Why this nation is the most difficult to disarm. It has to do with freedom. It has to do with the understanding of what freedom really is. It has to do with the knowledge that if you are not willing to die for freedom, you cannot and will not ever be free, because all your enemy must do is threaten your life and you will wimp into a bowl of quivering jelly. You will kiss his feet and do whatever the hell he wishes you to do if you are not willing to die for those principles and ideals that lead to freedom. It's not about finding loopholes in the tax code so you don't have to pay the income tax to get out of paying the money because you don't want to part with it. It's about the fact that the income tax is unconstitutionally and unlawfully being applied to the citizens of the several states when they are not required, nor is it anywhere in the law that they must do so unless they are participating in certain excisable activities, which causes them to create corporate gain called gross income under the law. That's what it's about. It's about the difference between right and wrong. It's about whether you have been intimidated and scared to death by tyrants which makes you pay tribute to your masters, or whether you will be free and stand on your own 2 feet and say, no, not now, not ever will I do such a thing. And be willing to die for that stance. Because unless you're willing to take it, you are already enslaved, and there is no rescue, there is no hope, there is no help, not now, not ever.